Without much delay, I would like to introduce you to our next chairperson and the speakers for the first session on debate on role of MIS in sarcoma cervix. Our chairperson, Dr. Abraham, Professor Head Gynec Oncology, CMC Vellore, Dr. UD Bafna, Consultant Gynec Oncology, Bhagwan Mahavir Jain Hospital, Bangalore. And our speakers for this session are Dr. Amita Maheshwari, Professor and Head Gynec Oncology, TMH Mumbai, and Dr. Rohit Ranade, Consultant Gynec Oncology and Robotic Surgeon, NH Narayana Hospital, Bangalore. Over to you, ma'am.
Am I supposed to start?
Yes, sir.
Unless the chairperson, since it is a debate, unless the chairpersons want to give some kind of an introduction or,
Okay.
kind of cool down.
Over to you, Abraham, sir.
Abraham,
Yes, I think
anyone
this is
who-
after the publication on the LAC trial, there's been a lot of interest and controversy generated. As the scientific temper that we all have, we always have to distrust the evidence presented. And because we have to seek, the issues are much more complex than we realize. So science generally tends to, for our understanding, tries to simplify things. So that is even a randomized control trial. We always think that for the particular patient, for the particular situation, it might be different. So let's see what our excellent speakers that we have here today. So the challenger, Rohit Ranade, you have 14 minutes. And then you have a couple of minutes for rejoinder. Bafna, would you like to say something?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. And I welcome you all. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I welcome all the delegates, all the participants for this second minimally invasive surgery in gynec oncology. For a long time, almost 25 years, laparoscopy was considered as a standard of care for cervical cancer. But as Abraham mentioned, whole thing has changed in the year 2018 after the publication of LAC trial. Not many people are happy with the trial. So let us see what our speakers of today have to say about this trial. And any further evidence, I think they would be happy to share. So I would like to first invite Dr. Rohit, I think, he's going to speak first for minimally invasive surgery for CA cervix. So here's Rohit.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. Thank you, organizers. Thank you for an opportunity. It's a privilege to debate against my mentor and my teacher during my MCH curriculum, Dr. Amita Maheshwari. And I hope that I'll be able to provide some formidable fight here. Now, today's topic is MIS in CA cervix. It's going to be a David versus the Goliath fight. Dr. A. Maheshwari is the Goliath. I'm the David. And on top of that, the Goliath has been given a Brahmastra in the form of the LACC trial. But sometimes David can also win. Let's see if it's possible today. Now, cervical cancer is the second most common cancer in women in India, with about 95,000 new cases, according to the Globocan statistics. Radical hysterectomy plus a bilateral pelvic node dissection is still the standard of care for early cervical cancer. And it's most of the times considered as a benchmark of gynecological oncosurgeon. Traditionally has been done by the open way, but since the advent of technology with laparoscopic surgery and with robotic surgery coming, effectively in 1995, when the first laparoscopic radical hysterectomy was done, and with the development of the robotic platform, the surgery has been attempted to be done robotically as well. Now, anything that we have to advise, we need concrete evidence, both in terms of safety, the benefits, and then most important, which is survival. Now, why are we so passionate or so keen about minimal access surgery? What benefits does it give to the patient, such as estimated blood loss? There is much less blood loss. The patient is much more comfortable pain-wise. Patient can start feeding early. Initially, you might have increased operative times, but as time progresses, your operating times will come down. All of this leads to reduced hospital stays, so you can discharge patients early, and then it's expected that you reduce the blood loss as well. Now, the technical feasibility of laparoscopic assisted vaginal hysterectomy has been established through a series of retrospective reports. These are mainly single institution series and multi-institutional series. Again, these are few studies which demonstrated the feasibility and effectiveness of a laparoscopic radical hysterectomy as compared to an abdominal radical hysterectomy in terms of complication rates and oncological outcome. This was another paper which again looked at about 1600 abdominal versus 217 total laparoscopic hysterectomy, which said that there was no difference in the intra-op complications and there was no difference in the surgical site infections, but the patients in the open arm stayed longer in the hospital and there were more medical complications in them. Now, as an oncologist, I think what is most important is survival. How long is your patient going to live after you have done a novel technique such as a minimal access surgery? Now, this was another paper from Korea. This is all the pre-LACC papers which looked at around 260 total laparoscopic radical hysterectomy versus 260 open, and there was no difference in the recurrence-free survival as well as the 5-year overall survival. So it all felt that all things were fine, and laparoscopy was here to stay for cervical cancer. This was another meta-analysis from China, which looked at around nearly 3,000 patients, and there were lower operative complication rates in the laparoscopic arms. And again, there was no difference in the 5-year disease-free survival versus the overall survival between the laparoscopic arm and the open surgery arm. Now, this is another paper. I will talk about it later. This looked mainly at tumors which were less than 2 centimeters, the role of laparoscopy in tumors less than 2 centimeters. It was a retrospective review with 1:1 matching. And again, there was no difference in the 5-year overall survival and the 5-year DFS as well in patients who were less than 2 centimeters. Now, coming to some papers or evidence on robotic surgery. This was a retrospective review of 2 large tertiary hospitals in Seattle, which looked at around 109 robotic versus about 202 open radical hysterectomies. All the benefits of MIS were observed in the robotic arm, and the recurrence rates were comparable in both the arms. This was another multicentric trial looking at robotic surgery versus laparoscopic surgery, nearly 250 robotic versus 230 open surgery patients, a good median follow-up of nearly 40 months. Again, this paper supported all the benefits of MIS, and there was comparable disease recurrence and survival in both the arms. Another 2 publications, again, equaling robotic surgery to open surgery in cervical cancer. And this is another meta-analysis, especially we looked at 12 high-quality studies which compared open radical hysterectomy versus laparoscopic radical hysterectomy versus a robotic radical hysterectomy. Again, there was no difference in the recurrence between all the 3 groups. Now, all the things were fine till this thing. We knew that laparoscopy is as equal to robotic surgery, as equal to open surgery. Even robotic is also equal. There was a LAP2 trial which was published for C endometrium, which said everything is fine. MIS was established as a standard of care in colon, in rectum, and we felt that even the cervical cancer, it will come as a standard of care. And then in 2018, in March, Pedro Ramirez presented the preliminary results of the LACC trial at the SGO meeting, and then this is what the community said. Most of us felt that it was shocker. Most of us felt that it is not true. So what is the publication about? Now, if you look at the publication, you will find that it compared about 319 MIS versus 312 open. Excellent, you can say a significant difference in the survival, both in the disease-free arm and the open surgery arm in the paper between laparoscopic and robotic. But if you go into the details and take a pause and look at the paper in more detail, not all is well with the paper. There are definitely some flaws in the study, and which I would like to highlight. Now, if you look at the paper, it was about majority where nearly 85% of the patients were laparoscopic. So it was essentially a trial which compared the open surgery versus the laparoscopic surgery. Now, there was a surgeon accreditation details which were mentioned. So everybody had to give details of their 10 cases, and they had to send their 2 unedited videos. Now, there has been a lot of debate on this, whether this is enough. Do we have any publications for it? Now, there was a publication from Korea, which looked at learning curve analysis of laparoscopic radical hysterectomy for gynec oncologists. without the open counterpart experience. And it said that you need to require at least 18 cases to gain proficiency in a laparoscopic radical hysterectomy. So in view of somebody, 10 cases may not be adequate. Now, what about the recurrences? Again, if you look at the paper, recurrences have occurred only in 14 out of 33 cases, 33 centers. That is, the rest of the 19 centers did not have any recurrence. Now, is it associated with the surgical volume? Now, this was another paper published by the Japanese group or the Japanese Society of Gynec-Oncology, which said that the hospital volume for radical hysterectomy may be a prognostic factor for early stage cervical cancer. Surgery at high volume centers is always associated with decreased local recurrence and improved survival. There are no details of how much volume was there from the 14 centers who had recurrence in the trial. Again, there was no central pathological review. Pathological information, especially on the deep stromal invasion, was missing in more than 1/3 of the cases in the paper. There was no compulsion to do a preoperative MRI. So there was a technical possibility that you might have operated the patients who probably did not need surgery. So these were probably 1B2 according to old FIGO staging, which probably were better off with concurrent CTRT. Now, one more point which is very important is at the time of publication, the survival data was available only on less than 60% of the patients. That means you did not have survival data on 40% of the patients. Also, there is a statistical error of 16% in the LACC trial, because the LACC trial said that the power was only 84%. And that is probably also one of the caveat which is there. Now, again, it was not adequately powered for tumors less than 2 centimeters because the number of events were very less in that subgroup. Now, look at the survival outcomes. The survival outcomes for the open arms are fantastic. You have never seen an overall survival of as high as 99% in any trial or in any study for cervical cancer. Most of the historical cohorts have reported survivals ranging from 75%, from 80, majority it is 80 to 85%. So the open arm has fared exceedingly well. If you look at the preliminary, the protocol of the LACC had estimated a 5-year DFS of only 90% in the open arm. But the open arm just fared exceedingly well than as compared to the previous historical cohort. Now, were there technical issues such as the uterine manipulator or the type of colpotomy, whether you do a transabdominal colpotomy or a vaginal colpotomy, and also whether there was effect of the CO2 gas. Now, the CO2 gas effect has been not said to be significant in some of the animal models, but the question is whether we can replicate the animal studies on the human as well. Now, at the same time of LACC, this was another NCDB study which was published. This was a retrospective review, and this mainly looked at, majority of the cases were robotic. And again, this showed that there was a significant higher mortality in the minimal access arm as compared to the open surgery arm. Now, if you again go into the fine print of this, there was no data on the cumulative cancer specific survival or the disease free survival in this series. Again, the investigators have been unable to confirm the accuracy of the clinical, pathological, and the follow-up data. Now, total in the cohort, only 31% of the cases had MIS. So the adoption of MIS was very slow. It is possible that when the study was done, the surgeons were not at the peak of their learning curve. And so that can be a bias, as well as the bias of the other disadvantages of the retrospective review are there in this study. Now, then came this paper from Sweden, which was essentially, Sweden has a very centralized system where all the gynec-oncology cases, or especially cervical cancer, is referred only to 7 centers. And they have a very robust system where every patient needs to be recorded or entered into the Swedish Quality Register of Gynecological Cancers. And only few gyneconcs in each center perform the robotic radical hysterectomy. The study period was nearly same as that of the LACC. No uterine manipulators were used, and it had about 236 patients in the open arm and 628 patients in the robotic arm. And look at the survival. The 5-year DFS is around, without propensity matching, was around 84 and 88. And after propensity matching, Both were same. So this was mainly between the open arm and the robotic arm. This is another paper from the Netherlands. Again, similar design. Again, all patients were registered in the Netherlands Cancer Registry study. All cases, surgeries were done in 9 specialized centers. Inclusion criteria were similar to LACC. 740 open radical hysterectomies versus 369 MIS. And again, the curves are after the inverse probability treatment weighing, suggest that the MIS is as equal to open surgery. This was another paper from Denmark. Again, similar model. Again, the cancer specific survival was around 94% versus 95% in the MIS arm. Again, equal, no difference. Now, this was a retrospective review from MSKCC by Dr. Lettau's group. And it looked at, again, MIS versus laparotomy. MIS cases were mainly robotic. And again, there was no difference in the 5-year DFS, overall survival, and the disease-specific survival between the two arms. Now, coming to another paper, which is mainly looked at trachelectomy, which is done for conservative management of fertility preservation strategy for cervical cancer. And it looked at comparison between minimal access surgery and open surgery. And it had a good median follow-up of 37 months and 40 months in the open arm. Again, there was no survival difference between the MIS and the laparotomy group. Now, does that mean that if a lady wants a conservative management, you can offer her an MIS? But if she says that, no, I don't want conservative management, I want to go for a radical hysterectomy, then we subject her to an open surgery. Now, again, there was a question regarding the use of uterine manipulator. And this was another cohort observational study from the SUCOR group or the European group, which looked at minimal access surgery versus abdominal radical hysterectomy. Now, if you look at the two survival curves, even they have found that minimal access surgery is inferior to open surgery. But if you look at, if you don't use the uterine manipulator, both the curves are nearly equal. Again, they also looked at a cohort of patients where they didn't do a colpotomy from above. They did a vaginal colpotomy or something called as a protective colpotomy. Again, there was no difference in the open arm and the MIS arm. These are two more publications which look at the same. One is from the German group, which is again looked at transvaginal closure of vaginal cuff. Again, there was no difference in the survival. And another was another journal published by the Japanese group. And there was again where they didn't use the manipulator and they did a protective colpotomy. Again, there was no difference in the survival between the two groups. Now, what is the future? Should we stop doing MIS just on the basis of a trial which has shown the recurrences in 13 centers out of 33 centers, or should we wait for some more randomized evidence? There is evidence coming up. This is a Chinese open label phase 3 randomized control trial. They want to recruit around 1,448 patients in 28 centers in China, and they expect the recruitment to be completed in 2 years. They have already recruited 17 patients as of now. This is another trial from Sweden, which looks as, it's again a prospective multi-institutional randomized control trial, which looks as around, the sample size is around 768 to be recruited in 5 years, and they are looking at 3-year follow-up. Results are expected in 2027.
And your time is running out.
Yeah, I'm just finishing. Last slide. And this is another trial which is yet to start, again from the US group, which looks as the ROCC trial. And this is what we look at. So I think I will stop. I don't think on the basis of a single trial, we can stop doing MIS. I think LACC has probably made us more wiser. We should introspect and look at what are the reasons why the LACC went, there was inferior survival. And if we can incorporate that, that would be good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rohit. I think we'll have Dr. Amita to speak against MIS. Then we can take the questions later on. Is Amita ready?
Yes, Yeah, hi, Dr. Bafna. I need to share my slides, so give me a moment and
Yeah, sure.
maybe just 1 second. Organizers need to allow me to share.
So in the meanwhile,
Yeah.
let me just go on.
Yes.
I think we have many studies, many retrospective studies for MIS and against MIS. And surgical trials are basically very difficult trials to compare because ultimately it depends on the surgical skill. You may be proficient in open surgery, you may not be proficient in minimally invasive surgery. So comparing these two modalities, I feel is a bit difficult. And as Rohit said, we cannot just go by one single trial. So let us see now what Amita has to say now. Her slides are on.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're
Yes, you
audible.
are.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Agoy and Meryl, for the opportunity, and thanks, Rohit, for kind words and sharing your emotions and feelings on the issue of MIS and cervical cancer. So this is my disclaimer, which is relevant to this talk. Now, my question is to all of you. I'm sure you all practice evidence-based medicine and follow scientific guidelines, because in next 14 minutes, what I'm going to discuss and share with you is absolutely unbiased evidence and what scientific communities and international guidelines have to say. So I think until 2018, March 24th, all was going well for MIS till the time of this very famous presentation by Pedro, which I think changed the world, and rest is history for me. So just to brief, it was a very well conducted phase 3 randomized trial in testing non-inferiority of laparoscopic robotic versus open surgery. Truly an international trial. Surgeons' proficiency was a prerequisite, and although 10 was minimum, that was not the upper limit, and not that people with 10 were allowed to participate in the trial. Baseline characteristics between two arms were very well matched. And Rohit just mentioned about inferior disease-free survival to the tune of increased hazard of disease recurrence to the tune of 3.74 times in women who underwent minimal access surgery. So number of events were 7 versus 27 between two groups. And similarly, overall survival was also inferior. There was a 6 times higher hazard of dying of disease or any related cause after minimal.
Amita, sorry to interrupt. Your slides are slightly hazy. Is there a problem somewhere, or is it that only I'm getting them hazy?
They're hazy, but I don't think we can do anything about them.
No,
I
now
think
it's
better. I
better.
think the quality is improved now.
Yes. Now it's better. It's better.
I think it has something to do with the organizers. Yeah.
And
there was 4 times increased hazard of local recurrence if you undergo minimal invasive surgery compared to open surgery. And simultaneously, we have publication from national data base, which also confirmed findings of minimal access surgery, that open surgery arm fared better compared to minimal access. So all this actually, led to a state of shock, disbelief, and grief, which lasted for some time. And the next reaction was anger and denial. And as a result, even before the publication of the article, you had many editorials written on the issue. And that's so surprising. That article was not even published, and people started criticizing the trial even without reading the full article. And then I think sense prevailed, and people went back and started looking at their data more dispassionately. So I will, there are many, many publications. I'll just tell you some important ones. So this is a study from Canada, a fairly large number of patients, and what results showed, and all these are retrospective. So cervical cancer specific deaths and recurrences were statistically higher in women who underwent minimal access surgery. And as a result, this group has changed their practice from minimal access to open approach. There are 3 publications from Korea. So again, this study confirming inferior or higher recurrences women who underwent MIS. The next study, again, showing MIS was inferior compared to open for recurrence-free survival, although overall survival was not different. The third study, again from Korea, showed that MIS was inferior, and even women who had less than 2 centimeter size, it was there were higher recurrences if it was MIS route. Study from Italy, again showing higher incidence of recurrences in women who underwent minimal access surgery. Some of these studies did not show OS difference, largely because recurrences were salvaged by radiation therapy and events were less, so you did not find any significant difference. A study from Argentina again showed higher recurrences both in more than and less than 2 centimeter tumor size, and as a result, hospital has changed their practice. Study from China, again showing multivariate analysis, identified laparoscopic route as an independent prognostic factor, and women fared inferior if they underwent laparoscopic surgery. Last year, ESCO, there was presentation by Sudhanshu Uppal. He's from USA. And what is interesting, we attended actually 2018 SGO meeting, and Uppal was a discussant at that time, and he was in a mode of denial when he discussed LACC trial. Let's see what he has to say now.
I have to confess that when I started all this, I was in the camp where I thought that our data will refute the LACC trial results. But data is data. When we analyzed it, we saw the same signal that minimally invasive surgery had a higher recurrence rate.
And I'm sure, my dear friend Rohit, if you analyze your data, you will also change and speak like Uppal, because he was very passionate about MIS at that time. But this is his results again, confirming that MIS has inferior disease-free survival, and this is including less than 2 centimeter lesion, and these majority patients had robotic surgery. Sakar, you already discussed. We will have further dissection of the trial in subsequent presentation, but overall, both DFS and OS were inferior in minimal access group. Now, this is the trial you presented by MSKCC, and why I put it here, and what for most retrospective studies, which is true, the disbalance or imbalance between two groups. So if you see, nodal positivity was 30% in open versus 17% in MIS. So you need to read these finer things when you say that survival is equivalent, whether they were better prognosis patient in minimal access. Similarly, no residual tumor was in nearly 1/4 of patient compared to 10% in open group. So these two groups are not comparable, and that's the problem with retrospective study. Now, this is study from England, again confirming inferiority. And what is important to realize that the difference between survival between these two groups may take time. So initial 3 years, there was no difference, but from 4th year onwards, you can see MIS performed inferior compared to open surgery. So as a result of all these studies, international societies changed their recommendations. So this is ESCO. Last year, they changed from from minimal access approach to open as standard of care, and that's what their recommendation till date. Similarly, NCCN, the standard and historical approach for radical hysterectomy is an open abdominal approach. British Society, again, they issued caution that clinicians and patients should be very careful if you are considering minimal access route for the management of early cervical cancer. Now, what about India? I showed you so many publications of what is happening in our country. Unfortunately, we don't have any reliable publication, or at least I could not find anything. And on 2nd September 2020, Amita and Rohit is still debating MIS in cervical cancer to do or not. I think by now we should have at least few publications coming out of our country. Now, why are we trying to save MIS? And there are some, Rohit mentioned few things. So less than 2 centimeter, again, there is no study that in 2 centimeter, it is superior. MIS follow-up is shorter. And many studies, in fact, showed higher recurrences regardless of the size. Now, vaginal cuff, we don't know. I'm not sure just putting some surgical sutures will actually prevent cancer cells from spreading or escaping through the vagina. If someone says that I have not seen in my hand, I think those People with God's hand, we can't argue with them. And the other impression may be robotic is safer. So my friend, that's not the case. There are, American studies are actually on robotic and which showed inferior survival in compared to open. And in fact, FDA issued a warning against the use of robot in minimally for cervical cancer surgery. So the fundamental question is why we want to do MIS for cervical cancer. Again, it's our belief that MIS has better quality of life and lesser complications, but is that true? So again, evidence comes from this LACC trial. And interestingly, this failed to show any increased complications with open surgery compared to MIS. The only difference between open and MIS group was that there was the duration of surgery was slightly more in MIS. Blood loss was slightly more with open, and hospital stay was, although all p-values are significant, but as a clinician, you look at these factors and do you really think these factors are worth risking the life of a patient? What about quality of life? So this is again, LACC trial has one of the component was quality of life. And interestingly, what it showed that there was essentially no difference in quality of life between these two arms. The only difference was decreased mobility in open surgery group at 1 week, which resolved at 6 weeks. So today, if I have to counsel a patient for MIS, what do I tell? So I tell that if you undergo minimal invasive surgery, there will be few ml of less blood loss. You will be able to walk early immediately after, maybe the very next day. You will have, shorter 2 days less stay in the hospital, but that is at the cost of 4 times increased risk of recurrence and 6 times higher recurrence of dying from disease. I don't know which patient will agree if I tell facts to the patient. So I'm very convinced that as far as patient's survival is concerned, MIS is inferior, but what I am not sure if MIS improves surgeon survival as a surgeon. So that's why I think it's more to boost a surgeon's ego that we can do a complex procedure than for patient survival. Now, Rohit mentioned about these 2 ongoing trials, and results are expected in maybe 7 or 8 years from now. The question is, what do we do till the time results are out? So do we continue practicing MIS, or do we stop it in the line of current evidence? I would suggest not to practice unless you are doing a trial yourself. And another point for me is now quality of open surgery and surgeons. So we always talk about quality of minimal invasive surgery, but I know a generation of young gynec oncologists who have not seen or not even assisted an open radical surgery, and then they don't know how to perform open surgery. So I think in the subsequent trials, you have to be sure that quality of open surgery also is assured, and it should be one of the criteria. So this is my last thought, and we all remember Hippocratic Oath. The first and foremost duty as a doctor is first do no harm to your patient, and current evidence is quite compelling against MIS. So as in our clinical practice, we should stop doing MIS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amita, for sticking to time. Rohit, you have a couple of minutes for rejoinder. 2 minutes.
Very good talk, Amita. Very well spoken, very clear. You brought out all the points.
But I can't join back Zoom. I don't know. How do I come back?
We can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Rohit, do you have anything to say? Or you are completely flawed?
Hello.
Are you completely
Rohit,
flawed
are you
by
there?
Amita, or you have something
Yes,
to
yes, yes.
rejoinder?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, we can't ignore evidence. There is an evidence in the form of a randomized trial. The investigators need to be commended that they did the first randomized trial, but there are also some other papers which have said that it is equal. So I think we can practice in less than 2 centimeter tumors, and we can use the protective maneuvers such as doing a colpotomy under control either vaginally or doing it with a stapler, and not using manipulators. And then ultimately, I think you need to discuss the results with the patient before offering her MIS, because you can't ignore a randomized control trial.
Thank you, Rohit. Anvita, anything more to say?
So yes, outside clinical setting, I won't, because there is no evidence even to less than 2 centimeter it is safe. Doing a vaginal cuff closure is safe. We really don't have evidence. So outside the context of a clinical trial, no. And again, one has to tell me the real benefit of MIS. So today morning only I asked my resident how much is the morbidity of open radical surgery. And they said they don't remember when we had actually serious. And Rohit has worked with us, and I'm sure you can vouch for that, that there is, in today's day and age of anesthesia, antibiotics, perioperative care, there is hardly any morbidity of open surgery. So
that's a very important point you made, Amita, about the quality of the open surgery also. So in future trials, that also we have to.
Actually, yeah, so I may go a little beyond time, but, we get requests, especially from Western countries. People want to come to learn open surgery, open radical hysterectomy to our center. And I spoke to a couple of them. Actually, there are young gynec-oncologists who have never seen open surgery being done, because minimal access was accepted as standard of care in UK and some of the centers in USA. So one problem I think with surgical trials is that, unlike medical trial, we don't really need level 1 evidence before changing our practice. And that's why we are seeing, after 20 years of becoming standard of care, now MIS is going back. So that's another thing we have to be a bit careful before we accept something based on very superficial data as standard of care. And we should continuously audit our own results and see what is happening.
Okay, thank you to both the speakers. We have run out of time. I'm not sure whether we can get an audience poll.
I'll just I have to make some more points here. Abraham?
Yeah, 1 minute. Organizers, can we get an audience poll or not possible? Or the chair, you are leaving it to the chairpersons to sum it up?
Yeah, so because we will be giving you the questions at the last of the sessions, the questions which we would have. Currently, we don't have that.
Can we take a poll as to whose arguments they are convinced by?
We do not.
How we will take a poll.
Okay, we can't take a poll. Sorry.
Yeah.
Dr. Abraham, doing poll only after is again a bias thing. We have not done poll before, so you should not do it.
Yeah. So I would just like to add something here, that 25 years minimal invasive surgery was standard of care for CS cervix, because all these trials were done on selected patients. And I've gone through the literature extensively. What I found is that all these patients were basically less than 2 centimeters. In fact, I think 70 to 90% of the patients, all the trials in last 25 years were done on less than 2 centimeter. Okay, and I have been practicing open surgery, minimally invasive surgery, both laparoscopic as well as robotic surgery. Personally, I feel that open surgery is much, much safer, and it is a common sense. To me, it's a common sense. The spillage is definitely more during minimally invasive surgery, whether you're doing it laparoscopically or robotic. And this year we had some 5 publications, interesting publications. And one of the publications was the meta-analysis published in JAMA, which has taken 15 high-quality studies on CS cervix. And they found that almost all the studies were in favor of open surgery, except 3 studies. And these 3 studies also were done on tumors which were less than 2 centimeter. And as far as tumor size is concerned, there was one study from China published this year, which addressed the tumor size, specifically size less than 2 centimeter. Again, in this Chinese study, they found that even in patients with less than 2 centimeter tumor, minimally invasive surgery has not fared well. I think the study was published by Rene Pereza this year on patients.
Yes, there is a study.
No, he has just written a review on the.
Yeah, so review on it. Published this year, specifically on tumors less than 2 centimeter. And another interesting thing is that pattern of recurrence. If you compare the pattern of recurrence in laparoscopic arm and open arm, you will find that the recurrences are more in the general peritoneum and intrapelvic recurrences as compared to open surgery. The recurrences don't occur at the vaginal vault. So I don't think uterine manipulator, colpotomy would definitely are going to alter a lot, because recurrences occur in the pelvis and in the peritoneum. So I think I am in favor of in favor of open surgery at present, at least.
Okay, though I started off by saying that we need to question all trials. I think the evidence is very clearly with Amita. But I think till Rohit, you have to come up with evidence to show that, even in less than 2 centimeter tumors, minimally invasive is better or as equal. So till that
Dr.
evidence
Abraham,
comes- till
Dr.
that
Abraham,
evidence is clear, we'll have to go with what the present guidelines and evidence shows.
Ultimately, it is
that's what
difficult to
I think.
counter a Brahmastra.
Message should be that till we get more evidence, what
Yes.
should be the standard? You should not use ongoing trial as an excuse to continue with MIS.
Right.
Saying that
I think as of now, we have to use open surgery for cervical cancer. And
Abraham,
outside,
one more thing I have noticed.
unless
is
we are
that-
doing a trial. I think Amita made a very important point. And
Can
we
I
have
just
to wait for the
interject?
evidence
We are
to come.
running out of time. Sorry. We are.
So I think, but Rohit gets the prize for the slide quality.
right. So Rohit, yes.
No, not just that. Rohit actually approached it very practically, very nicely he put it. And,
Good
that it's-
approach.
and ultimately credit goes to Amita, because who trained Rohit?
know.
Teacher's Day is 4 days away. The best credit is your student, is able to face you. So that's a credit to
Absolutely.
teacher.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
very good.
So she
No,
just
I
didn't
mean-
teach me
Rohit
how
made a very
to tackle the
valiant,
Brahmastra.
effort.
That was the only
Yeah.
thing.
So the conclusion is that Amita wins anyhow. Any which way, both ways. Whoever
Yes,
wins,
both
Amita
ways.
wins. Yeah. So just one small point that yes, the learning curve to be able to actually do an excellent open radical hysterectomy is something which we really need to learn and teach our youngsters. I think.
Right, and to be practical, the way number of cervical cancer cases are going down, we hardly see if you talk about learning curve. But besides, I think MIS is no more here. It's
Yeah.
gone for cervical cancer.
Absolutely.